you need to bleep this, but you motherfucker, you are the worst fucking director I have ever fucking worked with in my entire life. You will never make a movie again. I'm going to walk the fuck off this set if you don't get your shit together right the fuck now. In front of not only my crew that I'm going to try to work 22 days with, but in front of my grandma who came to support. My mom and dad are there, the entire family. I stopped and I went, okay, but let's finish the scene now. And we got back in and we finished the scene. And I kept my cool until I went home that night. And I went home that night, I kid you not, I cried. And I was like, first of all, I'm not making this movie. And second of all, I'm not making any movies ever again. I'm quitting tomorrow morning.
Welcome to The Practical Filmmaker, an educational podcast brought to you by the Filmmaker Institute and Sunscreen Film Festival, where industry professionals talk nuts and bolts and the steps they took to find their success today. On today's show, AJ Martinson gives us a fantastic view into the land of distribution and sales, both for his first indie narrative and now his feature doc. Quick disclaimer, as you all know, the post workflow is full of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and this particular episode, I fell down on the job and forgot to have him wear headphones. Ergo, you'll hear some bleed through of my audio, some echoes, and flexing sync if you're watching. I'm sorry, the distraction is regrettable, but bear with us because the absolute knowledge that AJ drops when it comes to the first steps of selling his films is so worth it. So without further ado, I'm your host, Tanya Musgrave, and today we're chatting with producer-director of Section 3 Films, AJ Martinson. He wrote and directed Cold War spy thriller Black Mark, distributed by Sony Pictures Home Entertainment, and has worked commercial and documentary, his most recent being The End of Blindness, about an Ethiopian doctor who is the only ophthalmologist for 3 million people. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tanya, how's it going?
Hey, this is awesome because we met up at the Sundance House and we'd honestly not gotten a huge chance to chat about what your experience has been. I only knew that you were in the throes of screening and getting distribution for your feature documentary, The End of Blindness. But I wasn't aware that you also had a narrative feature that you'd written and directed that was also distributed. And then I saw that you were also involved with commercials. So it seems like quite a story. Tell us how you got here.
All right. So, I'm sitting in high school. I'm 16, bored out of my mind in English class, which is funny because now, I write a lot. And I'm sitting in the chair thinking, what could I do that's a fun and exciting career? Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to sit in a chair and, boss people around all day long. And
don't we all?
And what job is that? Film director, of course. I'm half kidding. And so...
But yet, huh.
Yeah. Really, the impetus has to do with the movie I'm releasing right now, The End of Blindness. I was invited to Ethiopia just when I was maybe movies. And I was playing with a handy cam, how we all start out.
Yeah.
And my cousin, who runs Tropical Health Alliance Foundation, invites me to Ethiopia. I bring my camera and I film a 3-minute micro doc on this crazy foot disease called podoconiosis. It's horrible. It's a viral infection of the foot. It's super nasty.
Yeah.
Larry was doing great work in Ethiopia, providing shoes because that's what would cause it. Just walking on this volcanic soil, they'd get this foot disease.
Yeah.
And not fun.
Yeah.
So he was treating it and preventing it. And I filmed this tiny little documentary. I used to watch a lot of 60 Minutes as a kid for some reason. I think my dad liked it, so it was always on. And so I made this little 60 Minutes, check out this crazy issue that no one here in the United States has ever heard of. And, my cousin encouraged the film and he showed it to people. And I got hooked on this process of making documentaries and making movies. And I got out of high school and said, I'm done with school for a while.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
And so I actually, to get on, my first job was an internship for Steve McKivity, who produced The Passion of the Christ.
Oh, wow.
And I got that job. Right, yeah. I went for a walk in my neighborhood, and because, when you're born and raised in LA, you know where all the film shoots are.
Oh my God.
And so I was just walking in the neighborhood, and I went up to a grip truck, and I was like, hey guys, you need a hand? And they're like, no, because you're 18. What? But go talk to our UPM. She's super cool. And that UPM got me the internship. And then later hired me on at Malpaso Productions to do Jersey Boys as a PA. Just by hanging out. And the movie they were filming was Hop, and they filmed this big high school scene 4 or 5 blocks away from where I grew up. So
oh my gosh.
That's kind of how I got started. I remember getting in trouble at school because I got the phone call from Empower Pictures to schedule my interview, and I like walked out of class without saying a word to take the call. And like the teacher like wrote me up. I had to go to the principal's office. They were like super pissed. And I'm like, this is my career. Bye. I'm outie. So
That's amazing.
So that's how I got my start. It was a crazy time. And, you know, there are tons of adventures in there. I mean, I was a second AD on a feature film that shot in Texas like 6 months after the internship ended.
What?
And they paid me $1 an hour. Yeah, $1 an hour. Soup's legal. It was like we called it like a friend internship, right? Because I was like helping out this production.
Yeah.
But I learned, like I saw how movies were made, and
Yeah.
like we shot this crazy film in Texas. You know, Marfa, Texas. People were like bringing shotguns onto set to like shoot rattlesnakes. And like it's the DP and like the ranch owner in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know.
Oh my word.
It was crazy, but it was super fun. And again, like just learning the process end to end. Like, how do you make a movie? And like, how do you set up a crafty table? Because they didn't hire PAs. So like second AD really just meant PA plus.
So how did you get from there to writing, directing, distributing your own film? And like, which one came first? You know, because like, I guess you did documentary first technically, but like, is the journey just kind of been like, kind of like whatever's been up, like it's a commercial, then it's a documentary, then it's a feature, or it's just kind of like, oh, I actually just did commercial first or feature. I worked within the traditional Hollywood model first, and then I kind of branched off and did my own thing.
I set a goal when I got out of high school, and that's I have to write and direct a feature film in 4 years as my thesis from not going to film school, because I skipped college entirely.
Okay.
And so that was really the driving force. And when like year 3 hit and I didn't have a script, like I wrote a script, but it was terrible and it would cost like $20 million. And they was like, no way. So like I didn't have that like low budget indie, you know, I can actually do this script. I picked a spy thriller in Soviet Russia in 1960, so I'm clearly not good at contained.
Period film. Awesome. Perfect.
Period film with night exteriors, with kids. It's like I broke all the the rules you're not supposed to do.
Did you have a dog in there too? Like a big herd of sheep?
Yeah, big herd of sheep. It's all shot on drones. No. Yeah, so I set this goal of like, okay, 4 years, I have to make a project. Like I have to have something that I can say I did. And then if after 4 years I can't do that, then I'm going to quit Hollywood and be like an accountant and like it's going to be super awesome and like crunch numbers all day long. Screw creativity. It's like one or the other. There's no in between.
Oh no. Until your soul dies.
Yeah, just that's it. You know, dream's over, time to give up. I got to year 3 and I put the pressure on, and I think I banged the script out for Blackmark in 4 months. It was fast. It was too fast in retrospect. If you wonder why we have a 4.5 on IMDb, it's because I wrote that script way too fast. I did not. I was like, I just got to shoot something. Let's go. But it was really cool.
At first, I thought you were talking about 4.5 out of 5. I'm like, that's not bad. And then I was just like,
out of 10. Out of 10. It's like very rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
Very rotten.
There are parts of the story that when I watch it now, I don't even understand what I was trying to say. Like, I'm like, wait, what is the point of this scene?
That's a good sign.
It's super stellar filmmaking. So I'm hard on the story, all right? I'm very hard on the writing of that film. I am proud of the production.
Yeah.
Because it went from, like, I was going to shoot it, and I was thinking, like, maybe I shoot it myself and, like, 3 best friends, to all of a sudden, I looked at my bank account, and I started like hiring like this crew person and that crew person and that. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, if I just squeeze these numbers just like this, you know, I'm very lucky. This is a little bit of what made this possible is I had access to this incredible location where we could film everything.
Really? Really?
Yeah. So like the sets were basically 75% there, and we just had to do wall treatment and things like that.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So
that's amazing.
That saved all the money to do a period piece, right? So I got lucky, and it was very lucky. So we didn't have to spend so much money on the props and stuff.
Do you mind if I ask what the budget was?
We shot for 100, and that was like 100K, and that was like seriously, you know, I'd been living at home, scrimping and saving, and like drain the bank account, and then like knock on the door of like every family and friend member, like, hey, can I have some money? And they're like,
okay, because I'm just like, wait a second, you just saved $100K? Like, where did you work before?
But yeah, I mean, a lot of that was self-funded. So I was doing editing because nobody likes editing. And so I was doing cinematography work, and like I bought a camera and then set up my own little production company. And we were, I think back then we were churning like 45, 50 a year with very little overhead, And so 3 or 4 years of that.
Yeah.
And living at home, that like lucky thing. Didn't go to college, so the parents are like, well, there's some college money we were gonna spend, I guess. So like I got help, But yeah, a lot of it was just save, work. And of course, we didn't spend the 100 all in one shot.
Yeah.
There were kind of stages to the production. So like I bought the props over 6 months, and then I'd go work like 7 or 8 jobs. So it was kind of this layered thing.
Yeah.
I went all in on it, and we shot 22 days. And originally I was going to have like 4 or 5 people. By the time the whole thing was done, including post-production, cast, and everything, we had like 90 people who worked on it.
Oh, my stars.
It was like insanity.
What?
It was insanity. And it became way bigger. And like one of my favorite people that I worked with on it is the cinematographer, Nick Matthews, who is like, this guy's going to be ASC in like 4 months, I swear. He's so good.
Wow.
And he came in and was like, why would we make this as like an indie film? Let's make it look like a blockbuster. And I'm like, but can I afford that? And he goes, watch me. And he's like, go get the Panavision grant. And so, you can go to Panavision and say, hey, I want a camera. So they'll give you a camera package for $1,000, which is just a cleaning fee for as long as you need, as long as you request like the right package. And that's something I learned. I put on the grant, I'm like, I want anamorphics, and I want the Alexa 65 or whatever the equivalent was at the time. And I want like the top of the line gear. And they laughed at me. I like called them because they said no. And I called them, I'm like, what do you mean no? Like the movie I shot in Texas, which is like way different than this, but like, like you gave them one, why can't I get one? And they're like, well, you asked for like 6 million, like Star Trek doesn't get anamorphics right now. Why would we give them to you? And I'm like, okay, well, what can you do for me? And they're like, well, we can give you an Alexa Classic and Primo Primes and like O'Connor heads and monitor. I'm like, yes, please. Okay, done. And so we shot it on Alexa.
Wait, so they'll just do this with anybody? Back up.
Yeah, basically, as far as I know, I haven't checked on it in a while, and you can do it multiple times, but if you say you're like a student, a low-budget film, they just want to build relationships with people, and if it's gear that's sitting in their back closet...
Oh, my word.
Yeah, you didn't know about this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, this is huge. This is so huge.
Yes, this is amazing.
Yeah, Panagrant. I'm all about Panagrant. Like, they were amazing. Like, there's like 3 stipulations. You have to pay a cleaning fee, so it's not absolutely free. But like, come on, this was a $20,000 camera package.
Yeah. What's the cleaning fee?
Like a grand. It's like $1,000.
Yeah.
You have to have serious production insurance because they are giving you all of this like...
Yes.
So you have to have the insurance. I mean, I think on the Black Mark alone, we spent like 10 grand just on insurance.
Gotcha.
So you have to have a beefy insurance package to cover it.
All right. So you get this crazy package. Sorry, I'm derailing you. So like
No, it's good. I love the Panagrant is one of my favorite things. I owe them so much. Like the film looks so good because Panavision was like, hey, here's all this camera equipment. And my DP was like, oh, by the way, I'm a boss and I know how to use it. So it looks like a proper movie.
Yeah.
It's got like the actors did really, really well. There was a lot of like training. We went non-union because like no way am I going to be writing union checks in perpetuity on like an ultra low budget where the distributors aren't paying, like you get pennies on the dollar back, right?
Yeah.
So I was very careful about that. Pulled every friend and family favor I could, cashed in all the cash that I had, and we shot it. And it looks like the technical aspects of it, I would say, exceed the story by a factor of like 10 to 100. So as a director, it was pretty good. As a writer, but
it makes a good trailer though, right?
But it makes a good trailer and it sold and like people bought it. And like it's really big in Turkey and Istanbul for some reason.
Random.
Like yeah, well, we mention it in the film, and I think they're like, oh, wow, like an American movie mentioned like something that happened in our country that's historical. We love this film. So, yeah, like some places it's played okay, and my favorite review is military.com called it, and I quote, weird. So, and like that was the whole review.
That's amazing. That's awesome. If it sold and it made its money or what have you, like, or if it made any money, that's what works. So who really even cares? It's 4.5, it's just like, well, look at the bottom line. So do you mind if I ask what that bottom line has looked like for you? Like how that first distribution deal happened, what you learned from it, like how did these conversations go? I'm so curious.
So I was introduced to a really good friend he was like playing really heavily in the producer space at the time.
Yeah.
And he clued me into the fact that like distributors need content to sell.
Yeah.
And that was the first paradigm shift. I used to think that there was like a stepping stool. By the way, don't do this. This is the bad way of doing it.
Okay.
First you make a movie. Then you hope your movie gets into festivals.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you get into the right festivals, distributors will notice you. And then maybe you'll make a sale.
Yeah.
That's so wrong. It's like hot garbage. Festivals have nothing to do with distribution unless you're going to Sundance or South by South, like the top 5.
Yeah.
After that, it's marketing, and that's really cool. We can talk about that in a bit. But what he told me is he's like, look, people need content to sell. People make a living selling it. You just need to reach out to them. And so he turned me on to a couple of tools that we use. First of all, the AFM.com, the American Film Market, has just a list of every sales agent and distributor at their booth.
Ooh.
So I made a spreadsheet, and I copied every single email off of that list into my spreadsheet, and I created a template.
Yeah.
And me and one of our other producers on the film sat in this office day after day and just emailed people. My name is AJ Martinson. I have a Cold War spy thriller. Here's a trailer. Here's a link. Let me know if you're interested in a deal. And we emailed I think about 100 people, and we got 30 offers back on the film.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Just from cold call emails.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of deals? Like, is it the like, ugh, red flag, stay away kind of deal? Or is it the like, these are pretty decent deals?
Whole gambit. And that was cool because we had 30 deals. I was able to compare and see what a bunch of different people were offering. Mm-hmm. We didn't see any of the worst kind of deal, which is like pay me up front. So we didn't see any of those. And that's like giant red flag. We saw a lot of like, hey, you're going to have a $65,000 marketing overhead expense, and we're going to have to, recoup that first before you see any money. Yeah. And that to me is like, so I actually developed a formula. I'll have to go get my spreadsheets out if you want it, but there's like a formula where you can put in the number of territories you're going to sell and their marketing expense and calculate the like adjusted number of territories you'd have to sell before you get money.
Yeah.
I like created all these formulas to like actually have like a metric of how good the offers that we were seeing were.
Myself and the listeners say yes. We want that. Yes.
All right, you're going to have to bother me in about a week to get that over to you because it's going to take some time to go find.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's not polished. It was very like thrown together. So maybe you can help me make this an official like scoring system. But yeah, like basically you'd look at these deals and they'd say, oh, you're going to sell like 12 territories at 10 grand. You're making $120K. Well, if your marketing expense off the top is $60K and then you only make 20%, so you usually make 80% after that. Well, you really need to sell 15, 18, 20 territories to see money. Yeah. And so if there's only 21 territories, you do the math and you're like, oh, screw these guys. Like this is overwhelmingly bad. So I did all of that to try to get like a barometer, and then you incorporate your feel of the company. So like who's calling and who's nice? Who do you want to work with? And then you couple on top of that, you have to do your due diligence, your research. You got to call every person that company will give you as a reference of saying like, hey, you got your film with these people. Do you like it? And then you do your own. Like they'll give you some names and then you'll do your own research and you'll go call whoever else you can find on IMDb that went with them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of was my process of like weeding down these 30 offers. And like there was one they had, it was 10% only, zero marketing fee. It was like, wow, that looks really sweet. Like they were only going to take 10%. They're going to get it all these places. Unfortunately, I called somebody and they were like, oh, I haven't made a single dollar since I worked with them. And so I'm like, okay, nope, never mind. Cut that off the list, done.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of due diligence that you have to do because, you're right. Sales agents and distributors, there's a really bad rep in the industry for a reason. A lot of them are really sketchy to work with. Mm-hmm. But the deal we settled on, and I can't give the exact specific number of how much it was, but the deal we settled on was a really sweet minimum guarantee offer.
Okay.
And this never happens. But what they did is they actually found our Kickstarter campaign.
Okay. And
they saw that we had fundraised a certain amount of money on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what if we just give you that amount of money in cash and then like a little bit of extra money on top of that,
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel about that? And I looked at my producing partner and I'm like, that's like 99% of our budget right there.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we're going to own the film and we'll do whatever we want with it for 15 years and then you get it back at the end of it.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, that is cash in hand. Like they're putting their money where their mouth is. That means they're actually going to get it out there.
Yeah.
They're actually going to try to market it. It's not this back burner project. They have skin in the game.
Yeah.
So that's the deal. That's the deal we chose. And they produce other content too.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah.
it's like, okay, if I work with them, maybe there's a chance in the future I have another film, they want to produce it. Like it's a relationship. It was a long debate and, you know, there's that pie in the sky that you get like, oh, but maybe if I like trust this other company and don't do the minimum guarantee, like maybe I'll make like $1 million or whatever. But at the end of the day, all the expenses and all that kind of stuff, I just took the cash.
Yeah.
I took the cash and ran.
Yeah.
I was happy. Like all of that money I had poured into the film came back into my bank account. I didn't have to eat ramen noodles every day. And I had a little bit of cash left over to like make the next film. So
oh my word.
it was a once in a million. And like I tried to leverage that over other sales agents. I was like, dude, they're offering me this much. Would you offer me an MG? And they all like laughed at me. They're like, hell no. We're not. So I'm very fortunate we found that company.
Yeah.
And it was really good. It was a really positive experience.
So when was that?
That would have been about 2017.
That was now about 5 years ago. You're now kind of in that distribution space again with your documentary. It's a completely different vein, but what kind of differences have you seen this time around?
Let's start from the beginning. Why did that movie sell?
Yeah.
Black Mark sold. It was originally called Redfish Bluefish, and I was going for this like artistic, weird, like the Soviets and the Americans, and like our poster is this like very artful. My poster that I paid a designer, wasted my money apparently to design, is this very artful like piece, and I have it hanging in my room because I love how that looks. I got this really talented guy who does like Marvel posters, and he's like, I'll do that for side cash. And so I love that poster, and they took it to Cannes, which segues into the next film because they took it to Cannes, and like everyone complained about the poster. Oh, he's got a Soviet hat. We can't buy it in Soviet Russia because he's got the hat. Oh, it's too red. Oh, it's too artful. It's like this duotone thing.
Yeah.
Turns out they're not selling this as a Cold War spy thriller. This is an action movie for them.
Oh,
it's just broad genre. And because we had 2 gunfights in the movie and like some gunplay, they're like, boom, action movie. We're going to make money. And so the cover of
sold.
Sold. And so the actual cover of the film is like my lead character like holding a gun, running through the streets of Washington, D.C., which doesn't happen at all in the movie.
Yeah.
The Capitol building is burning in the background. You got like Kennedy's limo on fire. There's a helicopter that crashed. Like nothing to do with like the movie itself.
Oh,
and they told me,
stars.
like my first meeting, they're like, hey, we're renaming this, by the way. Like, you don't have a choice. Like, it's Black Mark now. It is not Redfish Bluefish, which is one of our character names.
Yeah,
I like Black Mark is cool, but I have to go redo all my title sequences and everything. So, and that's why it sold. Like, we had key action elements, and their trailer makes it look like the most generic action shoot 'em up. And like, it's these big cheesy, like, the nuclear holocaust is coming, but one man. I'm like, no, it was supposed to be artful, and now it's this. And like, I on my website, I recut my own trailer for like my website, and I use my own poster, my own key art, because like what they're doing, what I wanted to do with it, were very distinct. Yeah.
Well. You'll get it back in 10 years, and you'll put Redfish Bluefish back on it.
I don't know if I want it back in 10 years. I think they can keep going. They're doing way better with it. Yeah, I'll sign it away for another few and see if they can keep it going, because I don't know if I need to re-enter that void. The End of Blindness is different. There's no action elements that you can play off of. It's cataract surgery in Ethiopia. It's heartfelt, it's emotional, but like, who at the end of their day wants to watch cataract surgery in Ethiopia? It's a very niche specific audience. It's like ophthalmologists and like, actually we found through our Instagram stats, like women 40 to 60 who are interested in nonprofit. Like those are our 2 markets. Yeah. And it's a very specific thing. So what we did is I did the same process. I emailed like 50 distributors. This time I used a tool that I learned about when I went to Cannes because I watched them selling my film, and we can talk about that too. And it's don't watch people try to sell your movie.
Okay.
Not good. Not good for your soul as an artist. But I went to Cannes. I learned about the Senando database.
Okay.
So for about 200 euros, you can get access to the global distribution, like names, email addresses, physical addresses of thousands and thousands and thousands of sales agents and distributors around the world. And you just search, you're like documentary distributor, and then the whole list of everybody who goes to Cannes pops up. So you do the same thing. You make your spreadsheet, you email all the people.
And what is this called again? Sorry?
Senando.com. Yeah, Cinando.com.
Okay.
And so I did my same thing. I emailed like 50 people, and I got 0 offers. Yeah, not a single soul. And like I emailed distributors I'd worked with on other projects who like work in this space, and they're like, no. And I'm like, why? And they're like, 55 minutes. So lesson for your audience, if you want to sell something, 75 minimum is so critical.
Okay.
Don't make a 55-minute. There's not a TV market that's the same. Like, people can really schlep and sell a 90-minute film, a 75-minute film, an 80-minute feature. But when you have like a 55-minute one-off, unless it's a series, it's really difficult. So that was kind of a hard lesson to learn. And I almost went back and recut it. But I was introduced to a friend of a friend who's in the Producers Guild. And she wanted to be my producer's rep. Now, normally I'm like, producer's rep. That's another 5 to 10% of my money gone. But she was PGA, and she came highly recommended. And, we brought her on as an executive producer. I just like, no one's biting on what I'm doing. Let's see what she can do. And if she can't get any sales, then I'm doing it myself. We'll go self-distribution.
Yeah.
She brought me a couple of kind of offers, and then she found me Passion River. Passion River is awesome. They specialize in documentary and educational content.
Okay.
And like that's kind of their bread and butter. And they have features too, but they actually run the magazine that goes out to libraries and universities across the United States, listing all of the like edu content that they could purchase for their collection. Okay. They run that magazine. I signed with them. First of all, I produced End of Blindness for much less than Black Mark. I mean, pennies on the dollar comparison. Yeah. So the overhead's low. We don't need this to be a huge money, making machine. We don't need to sell every person. We just need to connect with our core target audience. And if everyone in our core target audience buys the film, we're going to be golden. So Passion River, with their edu content arm, that's what really attracted them to me. They also let me do a couple of key things that some of the other people weren't. They let me sell my own DVDs. So I could set up my own shop and sell my own DVDs. They gave me the rights to do my own screenings. Wow. These are things that Black Mark and many of the other like distribution deals we were looking at weren't going to let you do. It's hard to even get a copy. Like I had to go to Walmart and buy my own movie to get the physical copy of Black Mark. Yeah. Which was super fun because like, hey, there's my movie in Walmart. Like, buy. And it was really cool doing that, but it is kind of lame that like I don't have any access to these materials. So they let me, sell my own DVDs, do my own screenings, as long as it's in like the context of like an in-person thing. And they were very cool with us working with the nonprofit so that people who, gave to the nonprofit or other people could like have free access because we want to use this as like a marketing tool to help build connections for the nonprofit we were working with. So between all of those kind of dynamics, they were really kind to us, and they've been just such a pleasure to work with. When I talked to filmmakers from them, every single person was like, we love Passion River. I see checks in the mail. They're honest with their reporting. They actually report quarterly.
Oh, nice.
I was like, cool. So if nothing else happens, I can, hopefully they'll make something for me. And if nothing else, I can like sell my own DVDs and make my money back. Like just shipping them out of the back of my car on the street corner. Like, fine. Like there is going to be a way to make this happen. And so it was a pretty easy yes. And their terms were good. Again, can't really be super specific, but their terms were good. Yeah. And we went with them. And like I said, in the first, I think, 2 weeks of the DVD being available, they shipped out over 300 copies.
Wow. Okay.
And that's huge. Because a DVD sale, a streaming sale is like 5 cents, right?
Yes.
You get, and like an iTunes sale, you get like $5. DVD sale, you're at like 7 to 8. So in 1 week, I'm actually seeing money coming back in on the film with, over 300, and they're still selling it, and they have it on streaming, and it's on iTunes.
Nice.
And they're going to get it on like Tubi and all the AVOD and VOD, and they're pitching international as well.
Okay. Nice.
So even if international doesn't go,
yeah,
just the domestic is hopefully going to be enough to like carry us over the budget line because we produced, at such a low budget number. It's been a really good relationship.
That's incredible. I mean, like it always seems like that unicorn on the other side of the fence that you're just like, how do I get over there? But they do distribution and stuff. Do they do advertising? Is that like press? What happens with that?
That's the rub. So when we did the minimum guarantee, and so it was the minimum guarantee to a sales agent on Blackmark, and they sold it to Sony Pictures Home Entertainment through Archstone Entertainment, and there's like 5 conglomerates, and it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Anyway, all of that to say, when we went with them, because they had this direct kind of like pipeline, Sony did all of the advertising. And I think for like a hot second, there was like a Snapchat ad for my Cold War spy thriller. Because they really like knew their demographics, and that's where all the Cold War spy thriller lovers were hanging out. They handled the core of that advertising. And it wasn't much. Honestly, I think really it was just that Snapchat ad. I didn't go on any shows. There was no interviews. There was no publicity. They got it into Walmart. They sold a bunch of territories and then let each territory like market it. And like maybe late night, if you're in France, you're going to see a trailer for like Rogue Mission at like 3:00 in the morning, which is the French version of the film. And like maybe that's happening. I have no idea.
What if it's Rouge Mission?
Once I sold it, they're like, you're just going to get your money. Like, go away. We don't want to bother you anymore. So,
yes.
But in the doc space and with End of Blindness, our executive producer, Martine Malul, she was very clear on, you need to be publicized for this. You need to get articles and press done. And she really pushed me to like think of it like that. I probably wouldn't have done it if it weren't for her. Because the distributor's like, I don't know, we'll put it in our magazine that goes out to 300 people, and we'll put it on iTunes, and it's kind of up to you. See if you can get a following on Instagram. We don't know how marketing works. So that's not their emphasis. Their emphasis is on business to business. Selling territories.
Got it.
Getting it on streaming platforms, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so it was up to me to market it.
Okay.
And I know nothing about marketing. Well, I know a little bit. I've done a lot of commercial stuff. I have an idea. I have a sense. But it wasn't my forte. But what we really did, Martine pushed us to get a publicist for the film.
Yeah.
And we found October Coast, who does really good indie publicity.
Ooh,
They're not insanely expensive. It's like a good line item, but it's not a line item that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
And they sent out a PR blast to a bunch of outlets, and we got 15 like interviews, articles, press quotes for the DVD.
Wow.
Reviews on Rotten Tomato, on people's YouTube channel, all over the map, just from this one publicity push.
Wow. Okay.
With October Coast. And I was really pleased with that experience.
Yeah.
And they actually got us on like radio shows. It was Sports Byline, so had nothing to do with cataracts. I have no idea if anyone from Sports Byline watched the film, but we were on the radio. And like, if you were tuning in, you heard about the End of Blindness and Dr. Samuel and all that stuff. And we saw a pretty big increase in like our website traffic. We saw an increase in sales. We saw an increase in like clicks to the iTunes link. All of these things just from, this one publicity campaign that lasted for, I think, 2 weeks. Wow. It was very short. It was like, boom. And that really got me into this kind of headspace of like, okay, marketing, advertising, Instagram. So I started doing boosted posts, but like little bit of money at a time, finding the core target audience. And I think we finally kind of narrowed it down. Like I said, people 40 to 60, usually women who are interested in nonprofit stuff. But having that data is so critical because now I know like, okay, what magazines do they read?
Yeah.
What magazines do ophthalmologists read?
Yeah.
And through like pestering people on Instagram, you can get an article written about you. You can get, coverage in this different magazine. We have an article that I'm writing right now for Ophthalmology Business Minute. And that came about because I tagged someone on Instagram and then I tagged them again. Yeah. And then they ignored me and I tagged them again. And then I sent an email and said, hey, we'd love to have an article. And then when Santa Fe got ready, I sent out this beautiful little like invite card that said, hey, come to the Santa Fe Film Festival, see our movie, because they were right there. And then I get an email response like, we'd love to do an article about you. It'll come out in late February. I'm like, cool. So persistence. And then, but every time an article would come out, a podcast would drop, the numbers on the website would spike. We'd, triple our traffic, make a few more sales. And it was really cool.
Something you had mentioned before, in our correspondence, you were talking about the comparison between DVD sales and streaming. Talk about that.
Yeah, so fascinating thing that we've discovered in this. We with the nonprofit sponsored a certain number of discs that we could sell, or like links or discs or however it is, for people who had, donated to the film. And it was, I just want to say for clarity, and I have to give this disclaimer, the nonprofit didn't pay for it. It wasn't donor money that paid for it. It was someone who was affiliated with it was sponsoring it.
Okay.
The nonprofit's very particular that no money was used, in the production of this. No donor money.
Yes.
It was,
Well, I can completely understand that.
Yeah.
Very important to know.
This is two separate entities.
Yes.
And anyway, but someone very near and dear to the nonprofit sponsored a certain number of discs going out so that people could, experience where their money went. And so we were giving them out for free, and we said, you can pick. You can do streaming link, you can do a Blu-ray, or you could do a DVD. Of the, responses we got back, 25%, I would say, wanted streaming. I'm going to do the percentages wrong, but like 10% wanted Blu-ray. Like 5 people asked for a Blu-ray. Like nobody wanted Blu-ray. And the entire rest of that pie chart was all DVD.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a huge ratio. I think we ended up shipping almost 100 discs out with that promotion. And I was shocked because I'm kind of a cinephile. I like my Blu-rays. Like, they're nice, right? But then I think about it, like I never put a Blu-ray in. I like now. If it's on the Netflix or the Tubi or the iTunes, like click and stream. Like that's how I like to see it. I don't know if you know this, but Blu-ray, to set up replication for Blu-ray, so like to do mass production, requires, I think they lowered it now to $500, but it used to be like $2,000 licensing fee that you have to pay just to do the replication. So it costs like 14, 20 times the percentage of making a DVD.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot more money to make a Blu-ray. We found, I think going forward, streaming is a must because that's the future. And everybody has a DVD player, and nobody buys the $20 Blu-ray. And I didn't even replicate. Ours are like limited edition, like hand duplicated to keep costs down because we can't afford that setup fee. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. You're kind of putting things where you had mentioned before, as in like, don't go the festival route, and then hope for distribution. You've like jumped straight into distributing what you can. But tell me about the festival route for this.
Yeah, so you can see my award hanging out back there.
Hey,
I'm so happy.
hi.
It's I'm now an award-winning filmmaker. Like, isn't that what we all want to be, right? Like, I remember being 18, like, how do I get an award? I want to be an award-winning filmmaker. I don't want to be just a filmmaker. It's all nonsense. But it's good for the soul. It's good for the ego, right? We need those. We need to be uplifted because, like, often, I don't know, maybe people will resonate with this. Like, you make art in a vacuum. You show it to the people you know, and then it goes out into the ether, and like maybe people enjoy it. I don't know. But I found that film festivals are really for publicity and marketing, not so much for gaining distributor attraction. Part of that was when I was talking to distributors, I said, hey, what festivals do you go to? Like half of them said, we never go to festivals. Why would we waste our time? Except for the top 5 film festivals, you're not going to really get distribution. You're not going to make a lot of sales. It really is just for marketing. So on End of Blindness, what I did is I applied to film festivals that I thought we had a shot at getting into to save my money. $50 for 100 film festivals is like, what is that? I can't math right now, but it's a lot of money. It's not cheap. And so we really tried to laser in and focus like, okay, like probably we're not going to go to Toronto or Cannes or Sundance, but like maybe like a regional festival, or like, oh, here's one that focuses on like medical documentaries. Like, let's go there. And like really trying to pair the film with the right film festivals to maximize your return on investment. Because you have to think about it like that.
Yeah.
And so we got accepted into 6 film festivals through that method.
Nice.
And they're like arranged. There's a couple of regionals, like we did Albuquerque and Santa Fe. People in New Mexico love our movie. And I'm very excited about that. And most of it was like height of COVID, so we didn't screen at any of them except for now we finally have our first screening at Santa Fe. But what it did is when I went to my distributor and I was like sending out those emails, you stick the laurels in the email. Look, we're winning festival. Like we won Best Documentary at one. We were nominated at 2 others. We did the Impact Doc Awards, which is like not really a festival. It's just like, hey, we're going to judge your film and send you a trophy. And like, hey, they liked the film. You get a trophy. So like now there's one on my desk and it feels really good.
Yeah.
By the way, that's not like a pay to win one. Just to set it up. Like there is a standard and you have to. But all this to say, targeting the right film festivals, getting those laurels, putting them on the DVD jacket, putting them out in your press release, putting them out when you talk to distributors and sales agents. It was really key. And we started that process simultaneously with distributors so that if the distributor had like a festival strategy or a marketing strategy, it would work out.
Yeah.
And that's actually what's cool about Santa Fe. We are selling the DVDs. We are driving people to go get the streaming links while we are also advertising like, hey, come to Santa Fe Film Festival and watch the movie screen. Yeah. So we get this kind of multi-layered marketing so that we're always driving people to watch the film in many different ways. So it's kind of nice doing a festival with that in play.
Yeah. And like, I think you had mentioned before something about like grassroots, like marketing campaigns where you're allowed to, because of your agreement, you're allowed to do that. Whereas I assume before you weren't.
Yeah, like on Blackmark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was
like
no
screenings and stuff like that too.
Yeah, exactly. They took the global rights thing. And because I did an MG with a minimum guarantee with Blackmark, it's a lot different. So for instance, if I was getting a percentage of every sales, there would still be like an incentive to handle the marketing on a different film or on a new film. But in this one instance, it's really heavily, like the success of this movie is heavily tied to me like finding and carving that audience and like getting them really hyped and excited and going grassroots.
Gotcha.
There's a great book I'd recommend. It's an ebook. It's free. It's called Selling Your Film Without Selling Your Soul. Ooh. And that was really inspirational of like, okay, people can do this. It's possible. If I do a film in the future, I might be really tempted to do a self-distribution model where you do like an aggregator like Bitmax and you get all of the data. Because that's the one thing you always sacrifice with a distributor. They're not going to give you the data of
metrics.
Who actually bought.
Interesting.
Very few, if not, if any. So you kind of have to guess. You kind of have to go like, okay, well, I know we did good on iTunes, but why did we, like, who's buying on iTunes?
Yeah.
You're never going to get that. Yeah.
I feel like, I'm kind of just curious why, to give them job security, I guess, but being open with that would increase the chances of a filmmaker finding you that is actually up the alley. Like, oh, hey, these are the kinds of people that actually bought your film. Fantastic. I have a friend who made a film exactly for that audience. Like, why keep it under wraps? I don't get it.
I can only guess, right? So what I say is not probably the right answer, but my guess is it has to do with the amount of work it would take to provide that data.
Yeah.
So let's say you have like one film and then you have 15 films and then you have 50 films and like Passion River, they like take a lot of films. So they have a huge library.
Yeah.
And when you're managing that much data, the only amount of time you're going to have is to like give them the quick report. Here's how much money we owe you. Done.
Yeah.
So I think it's less malicious and more time to benefit. Like they don't care. They're not going to see more sales if they provide that data. Like that's my guess. But that's why it's really important to pick a distributor or a sales agent who you have, like you can call on the phone and they'll answer. They're kind to you. They're not pushy. They're not nudgy. And they communicate clearly. And that's my first question when I ask people, like, do you like working with them? It's like, hey, do they report on time? And if they don't report on time, you're not even getting the little data you're owed, right? That's a breach of contract straight out the gate.
Yeah, I think I'm going to also mention right now, I think you're familiar with it too, the Facebook group, Protect Yourself from Predatory Distributors and Aggregators. I believe that's an indie film hustle group on Facebook that you can join. And everybody talks about every single distribution deal that's gone bad. Hey, what about this? Oh yeah, stay away. Or hey, with your particular experience, which has been good, like absolutely go with them. I want to know a story of when something went wrong and what you did to fix it or grow from it.
This is what went wrong. All right, so I got my prop, and this is what went wrong on Into Blindness.
A whole stack of DVDs, CDs?
These are every single quality control check I did while making the DVD for the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And this is what perfectionism looks like. Bad, unhealthy, horrible perfectionism. If you start at the bottom of the stack, you'll see version 1. And if you in the stack, I think there's at least 97 versions of this.
Stop.
Each one was a different watch through of the film.
Oh my
so
word.
That means I watched it at least 100 times while making it over the course of 6 months of trying to make this DVD. The way it would go is at first, I found that at first I was checking like the technicals. I'm really particular about my encoding for DVDs. I think, but I'm going to get geeky with it for a second.
Yes,
so
please do.
Most places where you go to buy a DVD, they use like off the shelf like media encoder to make take it from HD to SD. And it looks horrible because they're not scaling it down correctly. So like all your text looks nasty and it looks jagged and it's awful. Yeah. So I spent like 3 months researching every single different encoder for DVD so that my DVD could look as close to HD as possible when people played it, like most Hollywood films do. Like, we're never really bothered. Like, when you put Lord of the Rings on DVD on, it looks good.
Yeah.
So I found my own custom encoding. I negotiated with the authoring house that was going to make it, like, I'm going to send you the files. But what that means is, like, I have to check the files, and I have to make sure the encoding's done right. And that's a problem when you're a perfectionist.
No, this is the good thing if you're a perfectionist because you know that it's going to look good.
You know that it's going to look good, but then you start watching your film over and over again. And what happens when you're the editor and the encoder you did you're working with the sound mixer really close. And so you start finding things and you did your own subtitles. So like you'd watch the film like, is there a comma missing there? Is that shot a little green?
Oh, no.
Is there green in his hair? Did she blink at the wrong time?
Oh, no.
And it just spiraled into like, watching the film, finding one thing, rendering the whole thing out again, watching it down again, burning a DVD, on and on and on. So this goes on for months and months and months.
This sounds
and we
like
get to the encoding house. It was an absolute nightmare, and it was terrible, and like it gave me like so much to talk about with my therapist. It's beautiful, but we go through like I would say maybe like this many DVDs to get it to the encoding house, right? Yeah. And we get to the encoding house, and like all the careful work that I did, they like change in the authoring process. Yeah, not in the actual like DVD itself, but like the subtitles, which I learned how to do proper subtitles. And by the way, if you want good subtitles, CineType and I used Caption Max are fantastic. Don't go to Rev. They don't know how to time things correctly.
Interesting.
I know. This is what happens when you get the OCD and the filmmaking. Yeah. So save yourself hours of heartache. Go to captionmax.com and just order professional subtitles that are made for movies.
Yeah.
Don't sweat it. They'll and ask for the Netflix spec because Netflix looks better than like most other specifications. And I could go on and get geeky with that. But anyway, to get to the encoding house, it was like that many. And then you get to the encoding house and you find out that like the software they're using changes the timing of all your subtitles.
No.
That you spent so much money and time trying to get perfect. And anyway, it's not their fault. Like the manufacturing house was great, but I had to really get in there and like go over each detail again. And so that was like the next stack of 50 was just checking that back and forth. Anyway, all this to say, that was something that went really wrong, really showed one of my weaknesses as a filmmaker, this perfectionist mindset. Because honestly, let's be real, we're business people as well as artists. And if that shot is a little green, if that caption is a little off time, you still got their ticket money. They're still watching the movie. It doesn't matter. You're not going to win any more audience members for that. The story is the only thing that matters. And then the marketing is the only thing that matters. Not to be dark about it, but like that's the truth. Like if you get someone to buy the disc, they bought the disc.
Yeah.
So anyway, you want to have artistry, but this is too much artistry. I think there's a balance.
That's borderline. So I'm kind of glad to hear that you had a therapist help you through this whole thing. Because oh my gosh, now I'd be worried for you. I'm just like, are you okay, bro?
That was my girlfriend is an angel. She was very understanding in the process and was very I know that you want this to be really good, AJ, but nobody's gonna care. Let it go. And I can still find there's 3 or 4 things, and eventually I'd be like, no, I'm making a stand against this craziness. It's done. So that was.
There's a time. There's a time to say no,
and you just gotta say
that it's done.
It's done. And now it's out, and I'm very happy. And I don't have to do this. I don't have to wake up in the morning and watch the movie again anymore.
You could burn those if you wanted. I'm just saying.
I could, but I think it's a good it's a shrine. It's a good reminder of what not to do.
What not to do.
And my advice, if anyone starts to fall into that trap, my advice to get out of it is hire people you trust and step away.
Yeah.
Because hiring Caption Max to do the captions, hiring a good sound mixer to fix my sound, finding, really good authoring houses who know what they're doing. It just makes life so much easier. So it was a hiring problem. It's too much DIY, too much perfectionism.
Dude.
And it can lead to really
but at
big,
the same time,
really big
shoot.
problems.
But at the same time, shoot, I'm gonna be calling you when I'm just like, hey, so I have this thing. Where do I even start?
That's the thing. Some of this is perfectionism, but I'm a curious person.
Yeah.
I get interested in why is this not working? Yeah. And so it was really fun to learn about subtitle timing and learn about how to do a proper Dolby encoding on audio and how to do the best possible video for DVD. So I took away from it a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
But next time I'm going to have a quality control guy so I don't have to watch it.
So that you don't have to. Good. I mean, it sounds like lessons have been learned. So we're all good. Now I want to hear about the chaos. Please tell me about the chaos.
I don't know how most first days of a feature are supposed to go. But the first day on my feature was absolute insanity. We had, we filmed one of the climax scenes of the entire movie on the first day. Do not recommend, but because we got a $10,000 location for free, which is a whole nother story that I actually can't talk about. It's my mafia connection. No, I'm just kidding.
Gotcha.
Yes, yeah.
Don't come after me.
No, but we got this amazing, gorgeous location on a favor, but that was the one day that we could shoot. And
got it.
We only got one day. You only got one chance. It's the crux of the movie. We had I think it was 12 pages we had to shoot. A normal day is 6, but we had to shoot 12 pages, and including a fight scene. That's the fight scene at the end of the movie, and everyone's first day. Yeah, and fight choreography, and it was with people who were a little bit older, so it was this was not a day that was going to move quickly by any means. And I think the worst moment of my entire filmmaking career happens where on hour 9 or 10, and one of the actors stops in the middle of the scene, points his finger at me, and goes, "You need to bleep this, but you, motherfucker. You are the worst fucking director I have ever fucking worked with in my entire life. You will never make a movie again. I'm going to walk the fuck off this set if you don't get your shit together right the fuck now."
Oh.
In front of not only my crew that I'm going to try to work 22 days with, but in front of my grandma who came to support. My mom and dad are there. The entire family. I stopped and I went, okay, but let's finish the scene now. And we got back in and we finished the scene. And I kept my cool until I went home that night. And I went home that night. I kid you not. I cried. And I was like, first of all, I'm not making this movie. And second of all, I'm not making any movies ever again. I'm quitting tomorrow morning.
Oh.
But I went to sleep, felt better in the morning, picked myself back up. And the next time that same actor came to set, because we had 4 more days with him, he was not wrapped.
Yeah.
He still came back.
Yeah.
And we made sure to really, treat him with the care and respect that he needed, that he was looking for.
Yeah.
We learned a lot. And by the end of the shoot, he was like, hey, look, what I saw on day 1 and what I saw at the end of this project were 2 different people. And I'm really I'm so thrilled to be a part of this, and I'm proud of like the movie that we've made together. And I'm like, basically I'm sorry.
So what pivoted? What set did he see at the beginning versus at the end?
Well, I think when you go in on our day ended up being 16 hours the first day.
Yeah.
And it was bad scheduling.
Yep.
We didn't have an AD. So like I was trying to AD and direct and like make rookie mistakes.
Yeah.
We were in chaos. It was a bad first day.
Yeah.
And we were all getting our sea legs under us and like, first feature, brand new crew, brand new, like everyone's trying to gel and a really hard day. Mm-hmm. And I think he didn't realize I didn't have as much experience, I think, as he was expecting on day one.
Gotcha.
We adapted.
Yeah.
And the scene came out totally fine. And the movie plays. Like, it didn't, like, nothing was compromised. But I think I learned very quickly, like, how to deal with people that need just a little bit of extra attention on set, actors want to feel special. Everyone wants to feel special, right? So making sure that, like, you set up an appropriate dressing room for someone to go retreat to, so they're not just hanging out in the middle of nowhere, that they can have quiet time and space and relax and get in their head. Yeah. And like every actor's different. Some are like, I'm going to go paint the flats for you. And like we had one, like I walk into where the PD is working and one of our actors, he's a good friend of mine now. His name is Elliot. And I kid you not, he's in full wardrobe with a paintbrush, like rolling flats. I'm like, Elliot, no, if you get paint on that, we're done. It's over. But like that, he wanted to help. He's like, I'm having a good time. Yeah. So there's just different spectrums of people. And like our production learned on that day how to manage a different type of people than I was used to. Yeah. And when I say manage, it's just make that person feel happy and safe and comfortable so that they can give their very best performance. Yeah. And I like him. We're still in communication to this day. He's a fantastic actor. He's a great person. Yeah, yeah. But, you just got to learn the hard lessons sometimes of like, how to deal with different people. Got you. It was worst first day ever, but really good lessons learned. So.
Oh my gosh. I can't say that I would have been able to keep my cool in front of everybody. Like I would have just, I would have broken down right there. Like, okay, you're right. Everybody go home.
We're done. That's it. Goodbye. No, it felt like that. But when there's too many trucks in the driveway, like it's going to take too long to pack up and then you just got to sit there knowing you messed up. So it was like, well, let's see if we can finish up. And we got it. We got all the stupid footage. Yeah, except for we missed one scene and we found a different house to pick it up in and totally fine. Yeah, and it worked out. And it all worked out. But I mean, it's those situations where like the question that I asked is seriously just because of the growth, like what did you do to fix it or grow from it? And I mean, there are all of these kinds of situations that I'm sure so many people could relate to having an interaction with somebody who is just like, and, they drop a lot of reality on you. I mean, in not so fantastic words that you're just like, all right, I mean, but do they have a point? I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's the heat of the kitchen. So, yeah, if you're not going to go to film school, you're going to have to take knocks like that. If you're not going to,
even if you do go to film school,
yeah, even if you, but I mean, for me in particular, like. Mm-hmm. It was my trial by fire, and it was really good for me. It was a great experience to have that happen, and then to be able to come back from it. Like, I'm actually kind of thankful in some ways. Mm-hmm. I wish it didn't happen in front of everyone. I wish Grandma didn't have to hear the profanity. But she went home and was like, oh, those Hollywood people, like, oh. And like, I very carefully constructed, like, oh, it's okay that I'm a filmmaker. They're all really nice. And she was having a great time, and then boom, explosion. Yeah, again, like I'm really thankful for it. It was a good learning opportunity. And, the guy, he's out of the pressure of those horrible moments. He's a total sweetheart and no knock on him. It was kind of deserved. So, it was good.
So one of the things that we like to ask is about the tools of your trade. What gear or gadget is an old reliable or resource? The one that is your kind of old standby?
I really like small cameras now. Mm-hmm. When I got started, when DSLRs were brand new, like the Canons just came out, like the 5D Mark II, I didn't like small cameras. Yeah. They were shaky. It was hard to stabilize them. They didn't have good balance. Yeah. But I am a huge fan of the Sony A7S series. Mm-hmm. That's what I shot Into Blindness on. Okay. And I actually, at that time, I had to develop my own custom color science for it. Okay. So on the A7S II, if you shoot in S-Log, you're going to get banding in the highlights because it's an 8-bit camera. Yes. You really want 10-bit to shoot in log. So what I did is I took the normal gamma, which is the light to dark, the tones. I took the normal gamma in the profile settings, set the S-gamut, which is the color science, to the same as you'd normally shoot with S-Lug, so S-gamut 3.
Okay.
And when you do that, what you get is no banding in the highlights and really great skin tones.
What?
Really great colors, so it doesn't look like an A7S. Another documentary that I DP'd, we shot it in Europe, and it was matching with an Alexa.
What?
Like, not perfectly, but with a little color grading, you could, like, I showed people they could not tell which was the Alexa, which was the A7.
Yeah.
So the real trick with
insane.
those cameras, is just finding that, like, really perfect color balance and color tone that looks awesome. And once I developed that hack for it, I was sold.
Yeah.
Because instead of bringing around this giant 10-pound, like, F5 or FX9 or whatever, you get this tiny little thing.
How about your favorite new gadget, one that revolutionizes how you work?
Okay, it's two parts. So I'm going to bounce off the cameras and like these new A7S 3s with 10-bit recording built in and like autofocus.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did End of Blindness, it's
Yeah.
one camera, SLR, shooting at like 2.8 to f2.8 to 4, and I'm like pulling focus while I'm shooting.
Yeah.
And like maybe it's in focus, and like somehow we got enough usable things. But this eye tracking autofocus, and I can just tap the screen.
Yeah.
For low budget documentary, corporate, whatever. Oh my gosh, that just,
Man, okay, so all right. Is it true that they finally put in a sensor cover for when you're changing lenses?
Lenses?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
Mine doesn't do that.
So Sony, for the longest time, did not have this. Canon had developed it for their R series, but I remember that for the latest Sony, and I cannot remember which one it is, I'm sorry, but for the latest Sony, they have a sensor cover as well as that autofocus. And I've heard also that the menus are not as horrific because I hate Sony menus.
Terrible.
Yeah. And like I was on set one time, and the guy because I was shooting some BTS, and I had my A7S as well, and he's just like, oh hey, like, do you like it? And I was just like, I hate it. Honestly, it's a diva. I hate it. Right? And I'm like, I hate the menus. Hate them all. And he's just like, honestly, it's like that all the way up into their cinema cameras. Awful, like user interfaces. It's horrible. But this last one I heard was really fantastic with the user interface, with the sensor cover. And my question is, do you still have to use the lenses? I know you don't have to, but there are some Sony lenses that they're still focused by wire. That makes it really, really hard. Yeah, I mean, you can't set any marks or anything like that. It's just like this continuous barrel that.
I'm going to give a kind of a story that people might relate to. I used to be really geeky about like, I need to have a focus wheel, and I need to have like a cinema lens with like the stops removed. And like, I need it to be like, I want it to be like, I'm making a film wherever I go. That is exhausting, Tanya. That is exhausting. I couldn't give two shits anymore. I'm sorry to say, like, I just don't care. Like, I want it sharp. So if I'm not doing something that requires like the creative aesthetic of like a Cook lens or like something that's really pretty, then I'm just gonna slap those good old Sony lenses on it and just use that autofocus and abuse the crap out of it. Because oftentimes, like, I don't have the budget for a first AC. I mean, unlike the features and the docs, of course. Like, I mean, again, End of Blindness, I didn't have any AC. I had nobody.
Yeah.
For stuff like that.
But features and commercials and all of that fun stuff, you do that. But
But like, but when it's just you and a camera, just a couple of guys, whatever. Oh my gosh, fly by wire, autofocus, lock onto the eye for me, shoot at f1.4. I don't care as long as it looks good. That's my priority.
So how do people find you or follow your work?
So people can check out Section 3 Films, which is my company at section3films.com. And you'll just see my portfolio, things like that, some trailers. But what's really exciting is where you can check out the End of Blindness, because we're doing this massive social media campaign right now. We're posting frequently. There's like a little bit of conversation going. So you can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on Instagram at End of Blindness. And you can find links to all of that at theendofblindness.com, which is kind of the central hub for the whole thing.
Awesome. Well, man, seeing into the depths of distribution and having all of these resources literally listed out has been incredible. I know that I valued it incredibly, but thank you so much for being open and for being on the show.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was a pleasure, and just remember, never this again. Don't do this, people.
Never
Just
again.
Do not. For the audio listeners, I'm holding up a stack of 100 DVDs. Please save yourselves. Caption Max all day long.
Yeah, pretty much. If you enjoyed this interview, follow us right here and on Instagram. Ask us questions and check out more episodes at thepracticalfilmmaker.com. Be well and God bless. We'll see you next time on The Practical Filmmaker.